what, for me, like, it started as a hustle. It started off, I wanted to help my people, Black people, needed therapists that look like me. So I'm going to get on the ground and do the work. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, hold up, let me take a step back. I have some power. I can help move this along and help bring forward more people who look like me. So there's more of me to go around. Because what I seen in the pandemic was that, I was just a regular therapist chilling at my OMHC, seeing clients, and that was all I was going to be. Okay with being a group practice, okay with being an individual therapist. When I realized I can only impact 20 clients at a time, maybe.
Talk about it.
I'm like, my vision's not big enough.
Thank you.
So I had to shift, right? So I had to look at it from a different lens. And so I took a step back and I said, what do my people need? And so when I took a step back and I looked at what my people needed, what my people need are people who look like us on the other side of the couch, talking to them about real things that also happen to us. And so what ties us is this cultural component, right?
Yeah.
And I hate to tell y'all, but that BetterHelp and that, all of those apps, they don't have what you need in terms of that cultural competency. But that's what people won't talk about, right? And so I'm always going to push the envelope, because we need to fight. It has to start somewhere, and where it starts is with us. And so a lot of my colleagues are out here private insurance. I only take cash. Right. Wait a minute. How are we going to help? How are we going to help the people that really need it? So we had to have, we had to see things outside of ourselves. And so I always say, the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I'm always down to build community. So when people invite me to do things like this, I think that it starts with a conversation, and it evolves from there. So I believe vision, comes with, maybe we start with hustle, but it's preserved by vision.
Whew. Wow.
So yeah.
That was cool. I'm going to let it sink in for a second for the people, because it got to sink in for me for a second. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the biggest emotional challenges that you see in our community. Like, you did talk a bit about stigma initially, but what are some of the bigger or more pervasive issues that you see? And then you can go gender if you want, or if there's like pervasive that are, with everybody, but, break it down. What's going on?
Okay, so first we can start off with the basic umbrella of racial trauma, right? So that's deep. But I need every Black person to know, we start there. So when people say they don't deal with trauma, I'm like, are you Black in America?
Thank you.
Okay, so let's start there. So trauma is a major thing. Depression is a major thing. Anxiety is a really big thing. And so those are the three major things that I see. And then the umbrellas, they trickle down, right? So then if you break it down by gender, you might see depression from Black males who might, be misdiagnosed, over medicated, because that also happens a lot too. So we see larger issues. You see kids in the school system who have influx of IEPs, but no real services, right? So we see a lot of different things in the system impacting people in different ways. And so it really just depends. But as an overarching thing, what we're seeing in our community is trauma, depression, anxiety, and then we go from there.
Can you talk a little bit about, that's not a surprise. And it's crazy to me. I was just talking to a friend earlier about this. You would never know it. You'll know if you know what to look for, but you would never know it, because in our community, we shine it. Everybody's shining. Everything looks good. We're doing well. I'm doing well. I'm just trying to get like you. Bruh, are you?
Don't tell nobody. Right.
What are some of the most common ways you see people coping with some of their undiagnosed things, like in your day-to-day, that are really prevalent? Like, so even that people may not identify as like poor coping methods, what are some things that people may think, I'm doing the right thing, like, even right now, I got my little glass of wine, but we're not judging that. We're not talking about me. We're talking about the other people outside. Because I'm facilitating this to help y'all. But what are some of the, not useful strategies that you see, so that and what are some of the ways that people can kind of replace those with things that can actually supplement and sustain them?
Absolutely. So what we see mostly, and I'm guilty of this as well, because I'm human, right? So I'm no exception. We see, of course, a lot of excessive drinking. We see a lot of alcoholism, a lot of addiction in terms of drugs. Drugs is a major thing. We see a lot of, drugs. Like in Baltimore, you know, which is where most of our services are taking place. We're seeing poverty. Like, like poverty has so many other pieces to it that I think if you haven't been there, you don't know, right? And so poverty is a major thing. And then it trickles down. So we see the alcoholism, we see the drug use, whether that be cocaine, crack, heroin, pills, whatever, weed, we're seeing that. Synthetic weed, we're seeing that. And then we're also seeing, like, we also want to acknowledge, like, the binge drinking, because alcoholism has different facets, right? So some people think, like, oh, I just want, I broke up with my boyfriend and, I went out to brunch with the homies and I had 20 mimosas.
Right.
20 mimosas?
No one should ever have 20 mimosas.
I've had 20 mimosas. You don't want that was in my 20s, though. Like, that was in my 20s. We have to evolve. Yeah, we have to have friends that say, nah, So we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing a lot of violence, right? When people don't have, robbery is a real thing. Shootings are a real thing. We're seeing a lot of over-policing of communities. It's a whole lot.
Yeah. Whew. Okay, so what are some things that we can do? Where's the silver lining here? Because, girl, we gave it to them heavy. You came in.
I'm sorry,
That's what's happening. But you know what's crazy? On top of
that, you gotta yank the Band-Aid off.
We live this, but then we live it, and then we go and listen to it. We go and perpetuate it. There's this one doctor that I listen to, Neely Fuller, and y'all can do y'all independent research. You should. When y'all teach me how to pin stuff, I'm gonna start pinning stuff. But Neely Fuller has this concept that says that, to a certain extent, Black people shouldn't even really be in too much conversation with one another if they haven't undergone a certain amount of healing. Because at the end of the day, it just becomes a perpetuation of racist ideology and bullshit that's going to keep us in one place. So, all right. But we have to start with we got to get to solution, right? Because we know the problem. We at least know the problem. We sprinkled a little dose of revelation juice on top of the problem. What can we do as people who are going to be advocates for others who may not be able to identify it, or for people who may be dealing with things ourselves? Like, I know that when we last spoke on my birthday, I was just in a space where I was like, ready to I had to, I know that everybody's going to some people get to a point where they just have to let it out. And so how do we become people who are kind of like, I want to say, mental health first aid advocates, that can help others and help ourselves?
So absolutely. So it starts with education. So even being able to, like, recognize some of that stuff. And so, like, things, we have to work in our gifts. So things like what you're doing right now, we have to work in our purpose, right? We have to stop letting those cash registers dictate what we do. Walk in your purpose. We need you. So we got to start there. We have to start educating people around what that looks like: depression, anxiety, how you can best support people. For instance, I just lost my grandfather, and I received so many different, like, responses to the loss. And, it's interesting that people have this set response to how they respond to it, but it's so wrong, and so I'll get to that in the work that I do, but it's a lot of miseducation out here about what you should be doing. So we have to educate ourselves on our own. So I encourage people to just, do independent study. Research your gurus, know who you're listening to, know what information you're putting in your mind.
Absolutely.
So we need to start there. We got Google at our fingertips.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.